Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well on this Tuesday morning. I hope your Monday went really well and your week got off to a good start. And today, we are continuing in the year of the Word, but we're in a new book today. Today, we're starting the book of Esther, and we're going to be in Esther chapter 2 and chapter 3 this morning. And we're going to be learning about Esther becoming the queen. But before we do, I want to give you a brief overview of what's going on. There's a king named Ahasuerus, and it says that Ahasuerus, it says in chapter 1, had 127 provinces between India and Ethiopia. So this guy had a lot of land, a lot of power, a lot of money. He was rich. I mean, he was a very powerful king, and he had a queen named Queen Vashti. And he called her one day, and he called her to come in so he could basically show her off. He wanted to show everyone how beautiful she was, and she refused. And so the king, Ahasuerus, declared that she would never be in his presence again. And so we fast forward to chapter 2, what we're reading today, chapters 2 and 3, and there's a Jewish man named Mordecai, who was he was of the tribe of Benjamin. He was actually one of the Israelites who was taken away from Judah when Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon captured them. You know, that's kind of what we've been learning about for the past few weeks. And that's how he made his way out of his land, and he was taken captive. And his uncle had a daughter named Esther. And Esther is the main character of this story, and we see that the king asked for all these women to be brought to him so that he could pick who his new queen would be. And Esther was one of these women who was brought to the king. And it says that she was beautiful. It says she won favor with all that saw her. It says that in the 10th month that the king loved her more than any of all the others, and that she had won grace and favor in the king's eyes. And so he picks her to be his queen. And then as we go throughout chapter 2, we see that the king had 2 eunuchs, and these eunuchs were angry with the king, and so they plotted to kill him. And Esther's family member Mordecai learned about this. And so Mordecai actually tells Esther tells the king, and the king investigates and finds out that it's true and ends up having these men killed. And so I know that's a lot in chapter 2, but I'm just kind of flying through this. And we get to chapter 3, there is a man named Haman. And Haman was one of the king's assistants, but he was actually promoted to second in command in all of the land. And he called for everyone to bow down to him, everyone to pay homage to him. But Esther's relative, Mordecai, refused. And so he refused to bow down, he refused to pay homage to him. And he basically came and said, I'm a Jew, I'm not one of your people, I don't follow the same rules as you. And so then then Haman goes to the king and tells him that there are people in the land who are not following their rules, who are different, and he wants to have them killed. And the king allows him. And so where we finish chapter 3 is Haman makes a decree throughout the land that at a certain time, on one day, it was the 13th day of the 12th month, that all of the Jews living in all of their lands would be killed. And that's where Esther 3 ends. And I know there's a lot going on there, and a lot of this is going to unfold as we continue throughout the book of Esther, but I just want us to recognize God's plan and God's sovereignty throughout all of this. Let's think about this. Mordecai was captured from Judah and has found himself in this land here where King Ahasuerus is, and because of God's sovereignty in that, we actually see Mordecai end up here, and then someone rise up against him, and we see Esther here who has favor with the king, and she's going to go on to make a huge impact for these Jews, for her own people here against Haman. That God placed her in the position she was in so that he could later use her to save his own people. And it's just such a good reminder that God always has an idea of what's going on, that way before something happens, that he sees the long term, that he has a plan, that he takes the bad things and uses them for our good, and that nothing happens that's outside of his command and outside of his sight and vision. He sees it all, he knows it all, and he uses it all for his good. And so today our reading is Esther 2 and 3, and I hope you're able to read it this morning. And then I will see you tomorrow as we continue through the book of Esther.